started. So Christina will, you could put that in the chat. That would be great.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a little bit political related today. And so the question asks, out of the last 12 presidential elections, how many times has the Democratic nominee won in Iowa? How many times has the Republican nominee won in Iowa out of the last 12? So we'll let people put their guess in. In the meantime, we will get started when Christina gives us the go ahead. So
okay.
Thanks for people for joining us, and we'll get started in just a moment.
Yeah, give me 1 minute and I'm going to get us live streaming so you all can have the recording. Hold on.
I'm sure progress is on the harvest is moving right along in your area too.
Yep, the fields are emptying out, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I always figure if we get done by Halloween, it's a great year. That's what I always think.
Yes.
I think we're going to make it, I hope, unless something really terrible happens.
Yes. Yeah, and I always warn our family that one of these years our Thanksgiving dinner is going to be spent in the combine cab and the tractor cabs, but we haven't been having that for quite a while. So
I know, back in the day, we did it a lot though, didn't we? You know, so things have changed.
yes, yeah, we're getting it done a little bit sooner, I think, but
Yep.
we've had some, we are dry, and I think everyone is pretty dry. So most folks
Last
are making.
weekend though, we got 6.5 inches here.
Did you really?
Yeah, which
Wow.
is crazy. Yeah.
Oh
We
my.
could have used that about 6 weeks ago, but you know,
Yes.
still, that's helpful for the long run, I guess, because it was a nice rain. So
Oh, was it good? And it all came down nicely, huh?
yeah, it wasn't, yeah, there was no gully. I mean, it was too much rain at one time, but it wasn't terrible. So
Yeah. Well, the agronomists and the climate people tell us that if we're stopping the combine because of rain in the fall, 9 times out of 10, that's a good thing.
well,
that
good
it
to know.
that helps us next spring so much,
Yeah.
you know, and
Mhm.
we're always anxious to get done, but
Yes, we are. I always tell Paul, come on, enjoy it. You know, one of these years you're going to stop and then you're going to really miss it, you know. And here you did, cussed all your way through them.
that's very true. That's very true.
Well, maybe everybody can put in the chat where they're joining us from and what, what the weather is like where you all are, if it's dry or not. So we are live streaming on Facebook. So you can go there right after this and find this recording and share it with your friends or rewatch it, do whatever. We're also beginning to post these on IFU's page on YouTube. So I think that will be a little kind of easier resource for people to be able to go back and watch what they want. Aaron, I am ready when you are, so we can get started.
Well, welcome everyone. This is the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn, and we are so grateful to be joined today by Chairwoman of the Iowa Democratic Party, Rita Hart, a longtime Farmers Union member. It's great to see you, Rita. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, yeah, Aaron, it's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, great. We'll get started in just a moment, but I wanted to remind people of a couple of upcoming Farmers Union activities that we want to make sure you know about. Next week on our Lunch and Learn, 1 week from today, we'll be joined by the Executive Director of the Farm Service Agency here in Iowa. Good Farmers Union friend Matt Russell will be joining us. So we're looking forward to that. So go ahead and sign up for our Lunch and Learn next week. And then, of course, we want to see everyone at the Iowa Farmers Union Annual Convention on December 1st and 2nd in Storm Lake, Iowa. We have a great lineup of that we will be hearing from. In addition, we'll be debating policy and electing leadership and renewing old friendships and making new friends. So December 1st and 2nd. On tap with us will be Art Cullen, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist from the Storm Lake Times, Alan Guibert, farm columnist, the Food and Farm File, and in addition to that, Chris Jones, formerly of the University of Iowa and author of Swine Republic, will be joining us. So we're going to have a great time. So sign up today, get that early bird special to join us at convention. Before we go any further, though, I wanted to start our conversation with our special guest today, Chairwoman of the Iowa Democratic Party and longtime Farmers Union member, Rita Hart. Rita, thank you for being with us.
Oh gosh, Aaron, it's my great pleasure, and I'm appreciating seeing the comments from across the state on where people are with the weather. Aaron and I were just talking before this started about how we're all anxious to get the harvest over, and we are in the field, but I'm thinking it's getting a little bit greasy out there, so we'll see how long that lasts. But I'm coming to you from my kitchen table here in western Clinton County, right south of the little town of Wheatland, just north of the smaller town of Big Rock. This is where my husband and I have been farming since 1986. We've both been on the farm pretty much our entire lives. I grew up on a dairy farm outside of Charles City with a big family, and Paul grew up just north of where we live here. We farmed there, the Hart family farm that is north of Wheatland, and we have our own farm here south of Wheatland. And so I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to hopefully have a good conversation with some fellow Farmers Union members. So um, I just want to mention a little bit about some of the priorities that I think are so important for us as Democrats when it comes to rural issues. And so the couple things that I'll mention, I think we're excited about the fact that we've been talking about, and as a former legislator myself, it seems like we've been constantly talking about the need for making sure that everyone has access to high-speed broadband internet. And it's been a bit frustrating that we haven't made sure that everybody in the state has access. And during the pandemic, it was obviously a real problem when people had to take their kids to sit out in a McDonald's parking lot in order to do their homework. That just is unacceptable. And we know what an impact it has for families and what an impact it has for small businesses and for farmers when not every area of the state has the same access to the internet. And so it's exciting to us, and we need people to understand that the Biden administration has really prioritized this, that they've already invested $415 million right here in Iowa to build out that broadband infrastructure. And that's going to help all of us. It's going to help us as farmers. It's going to help rural small business owners. You know, I tried to when I was running for Congress, I tried to open up an office out here in the western side of the county. And one of the things that was a real problem was making sure that not only that we had internet access, but that we had cell phone access. And so these things are really impactive to small businesses and to students who need to do their schoolwork. And if they don't have it at home, that puts them at a definite disadvantage to their peers at school. So we're excited about that we're finally going to get some assurance that that's going to happen across the state. The other thing is we're very much invested in making sure that biofuels are a priority, and the Biden administration again has made sure of that. President Biden has reversed the Trump era rollback of fuel efficiency standards, and came here to Iowa to talk about allowing the year-round sales of E15 during a time when it was vitally important that we were doing everything we could to save Iowans money on fuel costs. These are things that again affect the bottom line. Another thing I know that is important to all of us is the fact that we have lower medical costs for everyone. And this is again something that Democrats are excited about, that we now are capping the out-of-pocket costs for drugs like insulin, allowing more telehealth options, in various areas that in the rural parts of the state. That is not an absolute solution, but it certainly is a big help when at least you can get to some telehealth when you can't travel as far, and when it doesn't make sense for you to travel as far. But it's really important that we continue to invest in our local health centers, and that again is a priority of Democrats. And also, as you know, every day I'm talking to somebody about the difficulties around finding childcare and having affordable housing, making sure that everybody in Iowa has access to affordable housing and affect safe childcare. That's not only important to families, but it's important to us that we are able to attract and retain workers because that affordable housing is there, and that people have options when it comes to taking care of their children. So those are some of the things that I would say that we are happy about. Right now, we're not too happy about the situation that exists around the Farm Bill. There's really no good reason that Congress hasn't gotten its act together and gotten that passed. And there's always going to be ways to improve that farm bill, but we really need to make sure that it gets passed in a timely fashion. And so it's been disappointing to see our Republican representatives not be able to settle some issues around funding, and threatened us to be close to a shutdown. And now they're struggling to find a leader, and so that threat of a shutdown is getting closer and closer every day. So we're looking for them to get their act together and start pulling our Iowans and our rural economy into the priority that it should be, and get this farm bill passed. It's such an important bill for all of us, and it's an opportunity to build on the Inflation Reduction Act, because clean energy has the genesis to be a real game changer for us here in Iowa, as all of you know. And every day that we don't get that farm bill passed is a day that is affecting many of us as farmers, particularly our dairy farmers. If we don't have this kind of support system solidified, that could um, that could really be impactful to our dairy farmers, and it could end up increasing the price of dairy products at the grocery store. And so we know that there are 11,500 dairy jobs in the third district and 9,400 dairy jobs in the first district that would be very much impacted if the farm bill does not get reinstated. And also there are threats to organic programs as well, that which also directly affects many of our farmers. So um, I would uh, I would say those are some of the biggest issues that I want to bring to people's attention. I know that some of you are interested um, in an issue that directly affects us here in Iowa around the pipeline, the ethanol pipelines. And so I would tell you up front, I'm happy to take any questions about that, but I think this is an issue that both the Democrats and the Republicans are kind of split on. I think that is not necessarily it doesn't go down the party lines. But I think one thing that we can agree on as Democrats is that we don't believe in using eminent domain um, to um, to use for private profit. And so I think this should be an open process. I'm a little disturbed by the political machinations behind some of this, where it's not transparent enough. But we're very much hoping that these issues are resolved in a transparent way, and that eminent domain is not used for private gain. And I would leave it at that, Aaron, and open to have any questions.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much. And thank you for being with us today. We'll get to as many questions as we have, but people have been very enthusiastic about sending in some questions, and we won't get to them all today, but we'll get a good start on some really important issues. Going back to the Farm Bill discussion. In previous farm bills, not the most previous one, but in other farm bills, we've had a competition title, because we know that we have a consolidation in agriculture where a few companies control the markets we sell into, just a few companies sell the products we need, fertilizer, seed, tractors, so on. Where do you think that we ought to go with those competition issues in the farm bill? Should we have a competition title?
This is something where I'm as the party chair, I don't get so focused in on individual policy issues that way. So, but what I would say to you is that obviously we can look throughout all of history and recognize that competition is healthy. And does drive down prices, right? That when the competition is there, that is ends up being good for consumers particularly, but also for producers. And so I would say that as the party chair, we're interested in seeing that farmers are able to be productive and um, and be profitable, but we also are, and we're also interested in making sure that the consumers are getting a quality product and that it's affordable. And that when it comes to these policy issues, we need to elect representatives that understand that and reflect that in making sure that we don't have a system that is monopolized by just a few companies.
Absolutely. You talked a little bit about the Inflation Reduction Act, and we know that that was a historic investment in conservation, the biggest investment in conservation in our country's history since the Dust Bowl, and also huge investments in climate-related agriculture ventures. But there are efforts to roll these back. Where does the party think about those efforts to roll back those gains made by the Inflation Reduction Act?
Well, again, we're very pleased that President Biden has had the foresight and has prioritized the things that are good for the long term. And so everyone struggles to make sure that they can afford food on their table, afford the things that make their lives better. So we all have a vested interest in keeping inflation down. And so, again, we have got to make sure that the people that we are voting for, those people that are putting their name on the ballot, that they understand how important this is and are not following special interests, but instead keep the people in mind and what's best for them. And when we elect people who are true public servants who recognize that and are not swayed by big money and by special interests that have more power, then we all benefit, and that's what we've got to do.
Okay. Well, we had a couple questions asking about the Democratic Party and its presence in rural Iowa. And it seems like we often have a false separation between a rural and a voter and an urban voter. What should the Democratic Party do to bridge voters together in Iowa and address some of these false issues that are brought up between this rural-urban divide?
Yeah, it's very frustrating. I think it's very unfortunate, right? I hearken back to the days when I was a kid growing up on that dairy farm, and I had a very strong Democratic dad and a strong Republican mother,
Mhm.
and they were both well respected in the community. And as a small kid, I remember having both caucuses in our house at the same time. Now, I can't really imagine that happening today, right? But for me as a kid, that was just so interesting to sit on the stairway and listen to the conversations in both teams, right? In both rooms. And I was naive, of course, back then. I didn't understand it all. What I understood was the passion,
Mm,
the commitment, the reason why they were there, because they were trying to do something that they were supposed to do as citizens. I got that. And I understood the teasing that went back and forth from one room to the other. And then in the end, they all sat around the same table and ate cookies and had a beer or a cup of coffee or whatever, and they remained family. They remained as friends and neighbors.
mm,
And
mhm,
that's kind of what we have lost here as of late, right? Is the ability to recognize that we've got good people on both sides of this aisle, and we need good people on both sides of the aisle. And I guess that's here where we are in Iowa right now, I believe. We've had one party that's been in power for a while and they've been in total power. And so now we're seeing this overreach where they're passing unpopular things that the majority of people don't agree with
mm,
because they're listening to the wrong folks. and and that is because we're not as united and having those conversations as normal people, as just neighbors and friends. We're not having those kinds of political conversations because we're afraid, or because we don't want to get into fights. We should be able to have those kinds of conversations and recognize that there just because we don't agree doesn't mean that the other person is evil or a bad person, right? And that we need to listen to that other side, listen to that contrary opinion, so that maybe we recognize that we might be wrong and that person might have something fruitful to say, and we can end up somewhere in the middle. Iowa
mm,
has always been a purple state for a long time, and divided government has done us well. And I
mhm,
think most people would agree with that. I think also people recognize that if we're going to change that, we've got to start talking to one another. It starts with us. We can't wait for somebody to wave a magic wand and make us all, get along again. Each one of us has got to, make a conscious effort to reach across that aisle and have good conversations with folks. But as far as the Democratic Party is concerned, we're working very hard to connect with rural folks. There are lots of Democrats who live in rural counties, and they are people who care about the same issues as the Republicans who live in those counties. And so we're working to make sure that we're doing everything we can to start those conversations and get people to understand, what Democrats prioritize.
And you talked about Iowa has a history of divided government, and my trivia question today asked, out of the 12 last presidential elections, how many in Iowa were won by the Democratic nominee and one by the Republican nominee? And actually, it's 6-6.
Oh,
Um,
there you go.
so that's an example of Iowa having that history. Iowa Farmers Union is a nonpartisan organization, and we we advance those issues important to families, farmers, regardless of party. But I'm glad that you brought forward what efforts are being made by the Democratic Party to reach out. And you talked about those listening, the priority of listening, priority of having conversations in our rural communities with neighbors. And are there other initiatives being taken forth to make sure that those rural progressive issues are being part of the conversation for our elected officials in these coming years? We, those we are working hard to try to build our organizing efforts in rural Iowa.
For sure. And I think that that as we go, as we have learned in the past, some of the negative vibes, if you will, are coming from sources outside of the state, right?
Yeah.
People are listening to national figures who are talking on TV programs that are not necessarily news programs, and they are pretending to be news programs and really are very biased in their views, right? And therefore, um, we have got to just do a better job of reaching out to people of all stripes, right? And I think the way to do that, and this is what we're working on and making a concerted effort for, is to have conversations around the issues that matter, so that we can find some good solutions to some of these things. um, to have a conversation about how to improve people's lives with high-speed internet, to have a conversation about climate change, to have a conversation about should public dollars go to private schools, how is this going to affect our local communities? You know, how many students here in how many schools across the state are going to be negatively affected if this legislation, pans out the way it looks like it's going? These are conversations that people want to have, and they want to have them in a civil manner and be able to come up with good solutions. And so that's what I'm working on, is working through the county party structure to have every county reach out on those issues and encourage those kinds of conversations, so that we can come up with good policy in the end and elect representatives who truly are working for the people.
Well, absolutely. Well, we have so many questions that we won't have time to get to today, but we know that this is just start of a lot of conversations again. And we want to again thank you for joining us on our Lunch and Learn, and we hope to have you back soon. And we
Anytime,
can
Aaron. And I would just say, if people want to follow up and have a conversation, you can contact me by emailing chair@iowademocrats.org, and ask for my phone number, or give me your phone number. I'll call you back and we'll have a conversation over the phone.
That's wonderful. And we really appreciate your time today. I know our folks are busy out in the field, and there's
Yeah,
so many
it's a busy
things going
time.
on. So we know it's a busy time for everyone, but it was great to have this conversation with you, and we'll look forward to more in the future. And thanks, folks, for submitting your questions, that we got to as many as we possibly could. And we know that this is just kind of a part of the process of having these great conversations about family farming and sustainable agriculture in our rural communities. So thank you very much again, Chairman Hart.
Thank you, Aaron, and thanks for all the good that you guys are doing. This is an organization that is really making a difference, so I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks again. Thanks again, everyone, for being with us today. This has been the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn series. This is our weekly outreach effort to talk about issues that are important to our family farmers, important to sustainable agriculture and our rural communities. If you haven't had a chance to join the Farmers Union yet, please do so. We'd love to have you as a member. In fact, the only way that we can make a real difference is by working together. So consider joining now, consider being a supporter now, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week at our Lunch and Learn, where we'll be joined by the Farm Service Agency Executive Director, Matt Russell, good Farmers Union friend. And don't forget, sign up for the Iowa Farmers Union Convention happening December 1st and 2nd in Storm Lake. Thanks again for joining us. Have a good day, everyone.
Yep. Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Have a good day.